parched and I start tripping over my own tongue. So this morning I did a segment on creating a space to grow, which I think is really important, just making sure that your environment is supporting the development that you're trying to make. This afternoon, I am going to talk about my best friend, actually, my nearest and dearest, closest best friend in the whole wide world, and her name is Adversity. And I have learned to embrace adversity, mostly by force, to be quite honest. But it was an attitude, a mindset, an attitude, and a perspective shift. You good? You good? All right. That I had to make in my mind in order to survive. So I gave you guys kind of a little bit of a history about me this morning, but just to kind of put it in a nutshell, bear with me real quick. I was born to a single mother. She was 17 years old. My dad was not in the picture. He broke up before they found out they were pregnant and went to Florida. This was back before the internet and cell phones, so she couldn't like Facebook and be like, "We're having a baby." You know, he just disappeared. She got married shortly after I was born to a man who they shared a drug addiction to cocaine. He was incredibly violent, both her and us. They had 3 more kids, split up. She got with another man who moved in, also had a cocaine habit. They had a child. He was also incredibly violent to her and us. They split up. My mom's addiction got very bad. She actually publicly tried to commit suicide when I was about 12 years old. CPS came into the school, removed all of my brothers and sisters from our home. I was generally the caretaker because of my mom's addiction. We all were sent to different places, obviously because we had different dads. We reconvened shortly thereafter. I was the only one that was old enough to testify in court at the time, so I was about 12. And the condition that we made, and that was that in order for us to go home, she had to promise, I don't like this was legally binding, but in my mind, damn it, she was promising that if he hit her again, that she would leave. And actually, well, we were in the courtroom that day, and I told her that that was the only way she would go back. She said, "Please don't make me do it." I'll never forget that. Never, as long as I live. Please don't make me do it. We moved back in, and I think it was about a month or two. I think it was about a month or two before I came home from school. And when I greeted her at the back door, her eye was just lumped. It was black and blue. It was just lumped over. And I said, "Mom, what happened?" And she said, "I dropped my cigarette in our half bathroom," which was about this one. She said, "I dropped my cigarette. When I went down to pick it up, I smacked my eye right there in the corner of the sink." I was like, "If you don't tell him to get his stuff out tonight, I'll be making some phone calls. I promise you that." She did kick him out of our house, and that set her addiction into the worst spiral of our lives. Me and my 4 younger siblings and her moved into a 1-bedroom apartment that we shared. The bedroom you couldn't actually live in because it was filled with whatever belongings we had left at that point. So although they were bunk beds, we couldn't sleep in them. We slept on couches and floors of the living room. By this point, I had already started getting into gang activity, drug activity, a lot of violence. I was in truancy court for school, so I think my 9th grade year, I had missed over 30 days of school by January. She was leaving her addiction. She would leave sometimes for weeks on end. My brother here was 2 at the time, so I would miss school to watch him while she was on binges. When I was 14, her and I got into a knockdown, drag-out physical brawl that left both of us covered in blood. And it was then that we were all finally removed from home. I moved in with my father, who is actually a very successful, wonderful man. He is an engineer for Ford Incorporated. But he didn't understand me. He didn't understand all the issues I had and why I was the way I was. In fact, I think he actually referred to me one time as a snot-nosed punk because I was always getting in fights with people. But to me, that was how I learned that you dealt with problems. And quite honestly, I really didn't know any other way. If you disrespected me, all I had was that. So if you were going to try to take that from me, I was going to make you take it from me. My dad couldn't wrap his head around that, so halfway into my 9th grade year of high school, I was sent to the Behavioral Center for Troubled Youth called Kids Peace in Allentown, Pennsylvania. It was actually beautiful there, but before I left, I didn't do well with my treatment. I was very angry. I had a lot of reasons to be angry, and I wasn't getting over it. Just prior to me being released from that program, my therapist told my father and my stepmother that I'd be dead or in jail by 18 and that they should probably just accept that. My stepmom was an angel, and it all dries out, of course, but she just always believed in me and stuck by me. And I did good for a little while with her support, but by the time I was 17, I wasn't doing so well again. And I got into another physical altercation at school where I assaulted a teacher and was again hauled off to a youth center right before I graduated high school. By that point, my dad just about had it with me. I was kind of an embarrassment. He was successful and doing very well, and his family was successful. A little bit of an embarrassment. So I graduated, I had a graduation party on Thursday, and on Saturday, all of my belongings were in plastic bags. So I moved to Elmira, New York, and I was dating someone at the time. He wasn't bad, but the people we were involved with weren't good either, and much like your mom, yeah, there was a lot of factors to be made. I got into that, and it was very difficult for me to walk away from it. By the grace of God. When I was 19, I got a phone call that my grandmother had a heart attack. My grandmother had a big part in me and how I was raised. My mom was young. And because she had a lot of problems with her addiction, I spent a lot of time with her growing up. So my grandmother had a heart attack. For me, life stopped, and I needed to get to her. I moved in with her when I was 19, and I started going to college. And that was about the time that I had started to get my life together. But from that point forward has been such a massive personal development mountain for me to climb to get past the things that I had experienced. That much like Leah, even to this day, I'm still just kind of trying to figure out who I am. So I've learned a lot about it. And one of the things that stands out to me most is that for some reason, every time I'm going through an adversity, I think I'm the only one that goes through it. I think that sometimes we get so consumed by ourselves that as we're experiencing something, that's all that we can see. You know, we have our vision automatically narrows to only ourselves. And that can be it can make things very difficult when you think that you're the only one that ever goes through anything. Every person in this room has experienced an adversity, and granted, they're all different. But nonetheless, you've gone through something. You had a death. You had a legal issue. You had a family member transition. You had mental health problems. We all go through things, and there's a purpose to everything you go through. And as you go through life, if you're paying attention, God will reveal to you why you went through what you went through. There's a very specific purpose for each thing. A smooth sea never made a skilled sailor. So many times we ask for God. I know in my prayers I've done it. You know, please God, just let this go away. Like, let this just get better. Like, just let this just not happen. Just let this blah, blah, blah. And we need to stop asking God for that. Because if you will never have a challenge, how are you going to rise and grow and advance to the next phase of who you are, to the next level of who you are? You need those challenges in order to move forward. Adversity gives you an opportunity to improve things. The only reason that it's an adversity is you haven't learned how to deal with it yet. If you knew how to deal with it, this wouldn't bother you. You would just move right through it, just like you move through everything else. So when I get to an adversity, I look at it as an opportunity. When I was a teenager and I was didn't know how to communicate through my problems, my stepmom said to me one day as we were having an exchange that I prided myself so much on how I could throw my hands, but every time she turned around, life had beaten me down. And something about that changed the way that I looked at my problems, because I would never just let somebody just beat me down. That wasn't going to happen. I always said, if you're going to knock me down, you better knock me out, because I'm going to get up. She said, how come you're not adopting that to life? Life didn't give me a fair shake, but this isn't a pity party. I was going to get up and I was going to fight, and then somehow I was going to become, the Muhammad Ali and the Mike Tyson of these life fights that I was having that strengthened me so much, and I've used that through every adversity I have, so that now when I get to a place where I'm like, okay, here we are in adversity, I'm like, bring it on. Bring it on. Watch how fast I can get over this. And that's the perspective that you've got to have if you want to start leaping over your adversities. You can walk through them. Shoot, sometimes I've crawled through a few. Sometimes you roll through them. Sometimes someone drags you through them. But if you want to leap over your adversities, you've got to start to look at them as an opportunity and challenge yourself to get through them as quickly and efficiently as you possibly can. The blessings in our life always come after our challenge. See, for a long time, I thought that my adversities were punishments. I thought for sure I was being punished. And of course, like you remember from this morning, I didn't understand that, because all I tried to do was be a good person. Now, don't get me wrong. Like I said, there was a period there was a whole lot of problems. There was a whole lot of not being a good person. Maybe I had some bad karma to work out. But for a long time, I was really just trying to do the right thing. And the right thing was not coming back. It just wasn't coming back. And I said, why am I being punished? Am I still being punished for the things that I did in that life, that person that I'm not anymore? How long do I have to be punished for those things that I did? I know they were wrong. I go back to the people who I've wronged, and I apologize, even so recently as a week or two ago. As soon as that comes back to me, that I wronged someone, I sincerely go back to that person and apologize. I try to explain to them why I did the things I did. Not that I'm excusing it, but just that there was something going on in me that I was not adjusting to people around me. But what I've learned through life is when that adversity comes and I get through it, I'm then showered with blessings, which now gets me excited about my adversity. I know whether yesterday, everything in the world that could have went wrong, and me getting here went wrong. I ran into a pole. I ran into my bumper's cracked. Nothing went right yesterday. And that's how it always goes. Right before you get there, everything is going to rain down on you. Everything. And that's to see who is made of what it takes to deserve what's on the other side. Everyone doesn't deserve what's on the other side. You got to work for it. You got to fight for it. It's not made for everyone, because if you get to the other side and you're not prepared and you're not ready, you're going to make mistakes. You see this happen every day. You see musicians, athletes, people that blow millions of dollars. They're broke now. You're like, how does that happen? How does that happen that they blew all their blessings? They didn't go through the adversities to get there. Someone made them some backdoor deal that cut them around all that. They thought they were getting a favor, but then when they got there, they couldn't handle what God had given them because they hadn't had the lessons to know how to handle it. So you got to look at those adversities as absolute gems, as wonderful opportunities. One, to become a better person, and two, because I'm telling you, there's something coming after that you're going to be very happy about. Self-pity. Guilty. Guilty. It was an excuse for me for a very long time. I had every excuse in the book. You want to talk about anything? I've been through it. I've been physically abused, mentally abused, psychologically abused, sexually abused. I've been abandoned. I've been neglected. I've been incarcerated. I've had mental health problems, drug problems. I've been homeless. I had every excuse there was to make every bad decision I could. That self-pity did nothing but hold me back. I could be so much further right now had I not sat there and felt sorry for myself. But we do that. It's like the first place we go. It's like, oh, why me? Why not you? What makes you above, God's polishing? He's polishing you. That's an opportunity. For me, marriage was not something that my family respected. At least my maternal side of the family didn't respect marriage as much as I do. As a teenager, I always said I'm never going to get married and have kids because I'm a gambling woman. And if one or two marriages end in divorce, I don't want anything to do with it. I did get married. I got married at 19. I thought I had found the man of my dreams. And we had 2 children. And unfortunately, I repeated the patterns that I had seen before me. And my husband was physically abusive to me. It got to a point. I tried to work it out. I made a lot of reasons why I should stay, and I tried to do what I could do to make the relationship work, but it just wasn't. And in a very violent outburst, I decided that that was enough, that it was better for me to raise my 2 boys on my own than for them to grow up seeing that. Because if my sons ever put their hand on a woman, how I had seen happen to my mom, and how it had happened to me, I don't know what I would do. I don't know what I would do. I love my children more than anything in the world, but if that ever happened, I don't know how I would handle that. So I chose to leave my marriage, but it devastated me. It absolutely devastated me because I really believe that when you say I do, that that's it. That you two need to find a way to make it work. Do whatever you have to do and figure it out. And for this, I just couldn't find a way to make it work. I just couldn't figure it out. And it devastated me. It absolutely devastated me. I probably spent 18 months in some form of depression. And it changes, like a grieving process. You know, some days you're angry, some days you're sad, some days you're pleading with God. You know, it's a lot of different things. But it was very, very difficult for me. And I spent a lot of time crying about it and feeling sorry for myself. And I, not only was I now, you know, getting divorced, but I was also a single mom, which being a single mom is a lot of work. It's a lot of work. Not only was I a single mom, but I was a single working mom. Not only was I a single working mom, but I was working 2 jobs. I was working a full-time job and I was working a part-time job, just honestly to barely make ends meet. Barely make ends meet. We got our utilities shut off. There were bills I couldn't pay. I remember a very long stretch of eating scrambled eggs or instant rice for dinner so that the boys could eat them. It was a very tough time, and I was really struggling with it emotionally. And I felt like a failure, quite honestly. I felt like my mom. You know, all those times that you hear someone chirp in your ear, you're going to be just like your mother. You come from that. All those tapes start replaying in your head. And I was very emotional about it, and I would cry a lot about it. And my grandmother, who is not the warmest, fuzziest woman in the world, but I love her. I love her because she's the kind of woman you need. She's going to tell you what you need to hear. Not what you want to hear. Never what you want to hear. But she called me one day, and I was having another emotional cry fest in my bed again. And she said, you know, I'm not telling you not to feel. Because there are going to be things that come up, and you're a human. You're going to have an emotional reaction. You have to because you're human, and you're hardwired for that. It's okay to have your emotion about whatever adversity it is that you're facing, but you need to give your emotion an expiration. So if you need to cry and you need to feel sad, you know, from 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock, then do it. And then when 8 o'clock gets there, you need to cut it off. You need to go tackle your day and go get stuff done. Because you can't sit here from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. and just cry the day away. Like, you've got to pick yourself up and dust yourself off and get moving. And it was exactly what I needed to hear. Because she wasn't stifling my emotions and telling me, you know, don't be crying about it, don't be feeling sorry about it, he wasn't no good anyway. All that stuff that people try to tell you. She was respecting my emotional response to that, but letting me know that that emotional response can't hinder you from continuing to move forward, because life is moving. You're standing still, but life is moving. So I got back up and I dusted myself and I got moving along. And that's really just taught me to stay away from the self-pity. I know a lot of people that stay in self-pity their whole life, and you guys probably all do too. You know someone who's 50 years old, living in some dirt nasty apartment with nothing in it, that has every excuses in the world as to why they're at where they're at. I'm not going to live like that. I'm just not going to do it. Because then they win, right? Then the enemy wins. If the enemy gets you to stop and start feeling sorry for yourself and get all depressed and upset and miss out on all the opportunities and blessings God has out there for you, the enemy has won. And maybe it's a little bit of the fire that's always going to be in me that says, I'm not going to let you beat me down. I'm just going to lay down and take it. I'm going to get back up and I'm going to show you just how fast I can rebound. I'm going to show you that without you, I'm even better off than I ever was with you. And you're going to regret every day that you crossed me. I'm going to make you regret it. Believe that. Keeping things in perspective, this was really hard for me. One is because I come from a Sicilian culture. So if you're not familiar with the Sicilian culture, here's what you should know about us. We're incredibly animated, and everything is exaggerated. And it's just done that way for the effect. So if I'm going to tell you a story, I'm going to just paint a very vivid picture in your mind. The problem with that is that often we can get a little bit too wrapped up in what's going on. We've turned it into this grandiose thing. Well, we probably just could have skipped over it and just kept moving. But the problem for me was that I could not keep it in perspective. To me, my divorce was absolutely earth-shattering. My kids would never get a vacation. You know, I would never have the kind of shoes I wanted. I know it's superficial, but I'm like, I'll never have a house. No one will ever want me. Being a single mom with 2 kids. Why would anyone want a single mom with 2 kids? No one's ever going to want me. I'm broken now. I'm damaged now. And I sat in this space feeling sorry for myself and telling myself the worst, most negative things that I possibly could have told myself. And all the while, things are just passing me by. And I lost the perspective. I've treated this catastrophe as if life could not go on, when in all reality, I'm better now than I've ever been. And I am just getting started. I am just getting started. My feet have barely hit the ground. I'm not even in a full sprint yet. But at that time, it was so catastrophic. So you've got to keep it in perspective. You got to look for opportunity. I'll tell you what, I wasn't half the woman I was then. For 2 years, I worked about 80 hours a week. It was horrible. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was horrible. My kids were always with my mom, my sister, my brother, wherever I could find someone to take them so I could make enough money just to keep a roof over our head. So it wasn't good. But man, the amount of stuff I get done in a week right now, it takes people a quarter to get done. I mean, I can move through things so fast now and multitask so many things and literally juggle a full-time job, 3 or 4 careers that I'm molding and shaping, whether it's the modeling, the acting, the hosting, the speaking, and I have a telecom business on top of that while I'm taking care of my 2 kids. And my kids don't go without. They're involved in sports. They're involved in programs. We're going to the movies. We're doing all these things. So it's not at their detriment. A lot of times they're a part of what I'm doing. They've been to photo shoots. They've been to fashion shows. They've been to recording sessions. They've been to my trainings. They have been to so many things. They're a part of what I'm doing, and I let them know, you're a part of what Mommy's doing. And you know what? We're going to Disney this year because of what Mommy's doing. I promise you we're going to get there. In my mind, that wasn't even possible 4 or 5 years ago. That was I cried that I would never be able to do it. And I'm doing it. So you have got to keep it in perspective and look at the opportunity. My divorce made me so strong and so efficient. I get so much done in a week. You've got to strengthen your mind to find solutions. Too often we stay focused so long on the problem. You've got to be able to identify the problem and find the solution. And it really shouldn't be too long of a process. It should literally be, the problem is, I don't have enough money to go to Disney. Okay, what are we going to do to get there? And then you need to keep it moving. So for too long, we focus on this problem when you could have probably found 3 or 4 different solutions for it by then. But we're so emotionally wrapped up, you got to give those things an expiration date and move forward. The other thing is, like, everything is going to move forward, right? This too shall pass. We have got to practice that this too shall pass mentality. It can't last forever, right? It can never last forever, but we get really wrapped up in it. We get stuck in it, and it gets stuck in our head. We've got to learn how to ride the wave instead of swimming upstream. So a lot of times in life, things will happen that we will think are either catastrophic or not what we wanted or not what we were planning for. What that wave is doing is it's life's natural redirection. So whether you believe in God or Allah or the universe or whatever it is, there's some higher being that controls all of these things. What makes you think you know better than they do what's best for you or where you're going? How arrogant is that we sit around and go, this wasn't supposed to happen? Because you're omnipotent and all-knowing and you know where this is going? No, of course you don't. Humble yourself. Humble yourself, because you may think that this is horrible and this could be the greatest blessing of your life. In June, I was hit with, for me, was one of the worst things that could happen. Because I've been through enough. There's not too much anybody can do that ruffle. Here's like, let's be honest. Good luck. Good luck ruffling my feathers, because I've been there, done that. I've seen it all. Something happens to my kids, very different. I revert back to a woman that I'm trying not to be anymore. In June, I got a call from Child Protective Services that my daycare provider had been abusing my son. This did not set well with me at all. Not at all. I'd be talked out of a few trips out of that. But life was redirecting me. Now, at the time, I felt like a failure as a mother. How could I not see that this woman wasn't fit to be watching my children? How could I not see that as a mother? How did I not feel it? How did I not know? You know, like, you're a mother. You're supposed to know that. It's supposed to be instinctual. But it didn't happen for me. And I beat myself up for it, and I know it wasn't my fault, but my kids are just everything. And I had to take a few days off of work because I didn't have any childcare. Thank God my job is very understanding. But I picked up the phone, and the first call I made was right there. And she answered the phone, and I said, I know this is really last minute and just insane, but I'm literally, like, CPS worker is leaving my house right now because of the last daycare that my kids were at, and I need to find someone. She said, come on over tomorrow at 4 o'clock. I brought my behind over there and sat down with Christine for probably about an hour at her house as she told me about how she runs her daycare. She wanted me to know that in her home, God was a big part of their life, and it was going to be a part of my kids' life, and that they did lessons, and that they coached sports. And they've been such that tore me up. That tore me up. And here we were together, sharing this experience. But you just don't know. You don't know where it's going. Sorry. You don't know where it's going. You've got to trust and have faith that there's something in there that's bringing you somewhere. You get on the wave and ride it. Because it's bringing you somewhere that you don't even know. You're trying to swim back upstream to something that you know because it's familiar and you're comfortable with it. But there is something downstream that's better for you.
better than anything that you could even imagine. You've got to humble yourself and have faith that God or Allah or whoever it is that you talk to is bringing you where you're supposed to go. Because it is. There's a silver lining in everything. In absolutely everything. There's nothing you can tell me about your life that I can't find a silver lining in. There's nothing. No matter what it is I've been through, I've either learned something from it, or it's brought me to somewhere, or introduced me to someone, or given me an opportunity that I needed to have to grow. We think that life is sometimes slowing us down, and I'm really guilty of this. I get very frustrated because I like to move at like a superhuman Mach speed. I just do. I want everything done yesterday. Everything should have been done yesterday. And I'm okay with it because I'm driven. And I know that wherever I'm going, it's going to be somewhere awesome because I can't turn it off. It just doesn't turn off. But I get frustrated and I'll say, oh, this is slowing me down. You know, I'm slowed down right now. I wanted to be here. I had this deadline here that I made for myself because I think, and I know I do. I personally get very frustrated with the path not going as quickly as I'd like to go, but sometimes you're supposed to be slowed down. So last weekend I went down to Elmira to see my dad for Christmas. Because I've been working a lot. I just couldn't get there sooner. I just couldn't get there sooner. But my family's very supportive of everything that I do. So they were like, it's fine, just get here when you